Hi everyone, Jason Murphy here, providing a bit of an overview of my immersion cooling setup, which I've had running now for about 4 weeks. What it is a fog hashing B6D Ultra tank and dry cooler that I purchased from the great team over at HashX Mining. So I'll just step you through how I've got it set up here. Probably the first thing you'll notice is it's very quiet for ASICs. It's about 45 decibels in the garage, which is a big change from my air-cooled mining setup. So here we have it, the tank. If you haven't watched it already, there's an unboxing video where I step through all of this as it came out of the crates. But what I've got there is the tank itself, which has got the electrical and networking side, and then the actual immersion tank side. We've got the two pipes which come out of the tank and head into the dry cooler. So there's the outlet and the inlet. The outlet's obviously quite hot because it's heading out with the heated oil or the heated immersion cooling fluid out to the dry cooler and then coming back significantly cooler. The tank's got this quick button here which you can use to monitor the temperature. So it's 57 degrees Celsius in there at the moment, which is great, but I'll also show you later on the fog hashing software, which allows me to monitor the system from inside the house or from work or really from wherever I am. What I have set up here is a variable frequency device, or a VFD, which enables me to vary the speed of the dry cooler fans. If you're thinking about getting into immersion cooling with dry coolers, yes, it definitely takes the noise out of your house, but what it does is create quite a bit of noise on the outside of your house if you're looking to set this up in a residential area. So I strongly recommend variable frequency device, which enables you to really slow the fans down and just sort of balance the temperature of the fluid with the ambient temperature around you. So what I've got it running out here now, so right now we're ambient about 29 degrees Celsius or 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've got it at 40 Hertz, which is about 80% of the full power of the fans, which does take a pretty significant dent out of the decibels coming out of the dry cooler fans. Pretty much, there's not much else to see here. I've got the 3-phase power running in that had my electrician run straight into the cabinet. And then I've got the hoses running out through the wall through essentially about 2.5 inch or 80 mil rainwater pipe. So I've just sort of piped it through to the exterior of the wall, which gives me sort of a clean finish on both sides. A little bit of plastering work to do there to close up where the electricians ran the wire and just to close up the outlet I've got running to the outside for the dry cooler. There's probably not much else to see. I might do a video of the internal tank so you can have a look around that a little bit later, but there's probably quite a lot of videos around about that. So in terms of setup, pretty straightforward to be honest. Really just getting the tank where you wanted it, wiring it into power. If you want to set up a VFD, do that at the same time to give you some flexibility. And then it's really all about just running the pipes from wherever you've got your tank to wherever you've got the dry cooler. It comes with a 5-meter set of hoses, which is pretty long for me. I could probably get by with a 3-meter hose, so perhaps in future I'll tailor the length of the hoses because that is something that fog hashing offers, so you can actually just get the hoses made to whatever length you need, which I recommend because I've got quite a bit of hose kind of curled up in that other side of the cupboard over there, which is sort of unnecessary. And probably the biggest thing, I'm probably going to go over this a few times, these little O-rings that come with the hoses that go in between the fittings and the tank itself, and also the hoses and the fittings on the dry cooler. They're really quite sensitive to being damaged, so I was a bit overzealous when I tightened up all the fittings. I was really conscious about leakage, and I've got on there with a wrench and tightened them up, and it's sheared the seals. When I've kind of sheared probably 4 of them, and you only get 6, I only give you a couple of spares. I had to go and find some alternate seals to be able to then refit the hoses and get them sealed up. And essentially what we've learnt is it's just hand tighten. You don't need to put a wrench or a shifter or anything on there. Just get them on there and hand tighten, and maybe a 1/8 to 1/4 turn with a spanner is all you really need to get that seal to seat. And if you go any further, you're going to tear the seal and you're going to have leakage. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a bit of a stain there where I did have some drips. But essentially, since I've learned that lesson and had the tank up and running now for 4 weeks, I've had 0 leakage. And I've had a bit of temperature fluctuation here, so I've been heading up to around 35 degrees Celsius, which is, upwards of 90 degrees Fahrenheit ambient. So it is quite hot, and the tank got up to about 62 degrees Celsius, and at that point I had to have the VFD up to 50 hertz, or essentially run the fans at full speed. But now ambient's dropped a bit, so at about 28 degrees Celsius, 83 degrees Fahrenheit, I've got the VFT at 80%, and it's keeping all temps down under 57 degrees, which is really great. Okay, so this is the dry cooler. You can see, as I was saying, it's making a bit of noise. It sits around 65 decibels when the fans are at 80%, and pushes up around 75 decibels when the fans are at 100%. What you can see here is I've got the fans wired in here. Essentially they're two 3-phase fans. I had my electrician change the conduit here, so I've got a nice neat seal into there from the power run. That's essentially just running just in a loop to stop any water coming through, and it runs through there into a J-box that I'll show you in a minute. Just pass through the fans. Come around the other side, and here is where you've got your intake and your exhaust. So again, like the inside, that's actually the exhaust. The intake coming in from the tank is quite hot, and the outlet is quite cool. You can actually hold on to that. Can't really hold on to that for too long before it gets too hot. And you can just see all the coils of copper running backwards and forwards, and it is pumping out quite a bit of warm air here. What we've got down here is that's that 80mm 2.5-inch rainwater pipe running from the inside to the outside. I just put a 25-degree bend in it to stop any sort of rain running down the wall and then getting inside, and then I've put a hoop in the hose there, just in case any water runs down or rain runs down. It's not going to run back into the house. For code in Australia, I've got a main switch here, so even though there's the VFD inside that I can turn on and off, and there's actually another isolator for the fans in the switchboard, this enables me to isolate the fans from outside. And into that small power point there is the tank for the water cooler. A bit difficult to show you, but essentially there's a little pump in that little flap there, and what you can see here is the water curtain. So what's happening here, see if I can just open it up for you, is we've got water pumping up through there, and it's running down through the honeycomb structure, and then that's really just creating a wall. You can see the water kind of dripping through there. So it's essentially a water curtain. So like an old-fashioned evaporative cooler, the water's dripping through there, the air's getting sucked through there, and that's helping with the cooling system. I'm not quite sure, to be honest, what these are. Nothing really in the instructions to cover what that is. It seems to be some sort of pressure relief valve. Is on the outlet, so that makes sense to release some pressure at some stage, but I haven't had to do anything with that. You will notice there's quite a big puddle, so I have spent quite a bit of time trying to balance the pump. The pump's got an overflow valve sitting there, so you can adjust the amount of water that flows through the curtain, but I've really struggled to find a balance between making sure the water is primed, the pump is primed, has enough water flowing through it when I've got it on the low setting, and then sometimes it just cuts out through to where I'm at now, where it's obviously water curtaining a little bit too much, so the water's actually falling out of the back of the curtain and then onto the floor. So yeah, probably not much of a problem for too much longer as I get into the cooler months, but during summer, this all dries up pretty quickly. The water curtain itself does take about 5 degrees out of the temperature of the coolant. So I have done some experimenting, and it does, drop. It will go up if I, it's at 67 degrees at the moment. If I turned off that water curtain, it'd quickly get up. Sorry, it's at 57. If I turned off that water curtain, it would get up to 62 pretty quickly. So water curtain, they said it's only really optional in 35+ degree climates, but even today, 28 degrees, 85 degrees Fahrenheit, the water curtain is doing a great job of helping the efficiency of the cooling system. that's the dry coolant.